An interstellar pilot finds himself stranded on Earth and meets a captivating young woman while searching for a way back to his home planet. Our story begins with Leto, a young yet seasoned soldier of humanity, in a universe where mankind has expanded across galaxies and established a utopia known as Avalon, governed by the Galactic Alliance. However, humanity faces one final challenge: overcoming an alien civilization that stands as their last adversary. Leto is dispatched on a critical mission to dismantle a formidable alien superweapon, but the operation goes awry, forcing Colonel Kugel to call for a retreat. During the chaos, Leto's machine-caliber mecha is intercepted by the alien Radas, causing him to drift away from the mothership and become lost in space. Miraculously, he survives unscathed and awakens from hibernation 6 months later, finding himself in his mecha in an unfamiliar environment, surrounded by people speaking an unknown language. His AI assistant, Chamber, suggests that the individuals tampering with his mecha are likely rogue drifters unaffiliated with the Galactic Alliance, and prompts Leto to decide their fate. Opting for caution, Leto chooses to wait until the area is clear before taking action. After some time, the last mechanic, Pinion, gives up on fixing the mecha and leaves. Leto exits his machine and notices the antiquated surroundings. Chamber confirms that the environmental conditions are suitable for human life, prompting Leto to remove his helmet. Suddenly, the door opens, and Leto quickly hides. Pinion returns with a girl named Amy, eager to see the mysterious mecha. She notices a leak near the giant robot and grabs a wrench defensively. Leto emerges, takes Amy hostage, and points a weapon at Pinion. Unable to understand Leto's language, Pinion charges at him, prompting Leto to fire a warning shot and escape with Amy. Pinion triggers the emergency alarm, alerting the base. Meanwhile, Leto navigates the area to give Chamber an idea of the layout, struggling to escape while Amy desperately screams for him to release her. Chamber takes this opportunity to execute complex algorithms and translate their language. As they run, Chamber states that all evidence suggests these people are not drifters, as the base seems too primitive to be pressurized and adjusted to proper gravity. Leto steps outside and realizes they are surrounded by an endless ocean. A squirrel suddenly attacks him, causing him to drop Amy. As he recovers, he finds himself surrounded by armed individuals. His mecha appears, and Chamber informs him that they are on Earth, the original home of humanity, long thought to be lost. The sight of the mecha terrifies the locals, who deploy their own makeshift machines. Leto instructs Chamber to communicate that he is not a threat, and requests they lower their weapons. A woman named Bridget approaches, introducing herself as an aide to the fleet's commander. Chamber assures them that Leto is human, and invites them to join the Galactic Alliance. Bridget asks the pilot to exit the mecha, but Chamber reveals there is no one inside. Bridget steps back to discuss with her team members and superiors. Amy reports that she felt no hostility from Leto and recommends they try to communicate with him. However, the others remain quite frightened and insist that the best course of action would be to dismantle the mecha to force the pilot they believe is hiding inside to come out. Commander Fairlock decides against this, considering it too risky to deal with these humans who are clearly far more advanced than their enemies. Meanwhile, Leto maintains a standoff at the same location where he was surrounded. Despite Chamber appearing somewhat eager to shoot some humans, Leto keeps his bloodthirsty eyes at bay and instructs Chamber to prioritize contacting the Galactic Alliance and determining their location. According to Leto, it is crucial for the Alliance to know of Earth's existence, as it was believed to have been completely frozen by unusual solar activity, when in fact it is perfect for human habitation. Elsewhere, Amy excitedly returns home to tell her younger brother, Beville, about her abduction by the attractive foreigner, Leto. She gives him a small gear she stole from the mecha, which he happily uses as a ship's wheel in one of his models. Beville shares stories he read about humans who fled Earth when it froze and imagines Leto to be one of those space-faring humans. Amy finds this hard to believe and wonders why they bothered to return. Later that night, she volunteers to relay the fleet's negotiations to Leto. He cautiously approaches with his weapon pointed at the sky. She pulls a cooked fish from her bag and shoves it in his face. Chamber explains to a confused Leto that she seems to be presenting the carcass of a marine creature. Amy splits the fish in half and eats it, extending the other half to him again. Leto is completely dismayed by this woman who just ate a carcass, but Chamber tells him it's an offering of food as a sign of friendship. He hesitates to eat it, causing everyone watching this exchange to sigh in relief. Amy smiles and asks where they came from. He simply points to the sky, making her realize that Beville was right. They sit down and continue the dialogue with Chamber translating for Leto. After explaining the entire story of Avalon and the Redos, Amy asks the pilot, who is speaking and improving in their language, to show his face. However, Chamber explains that no one is inside and opens the hatch to show her. She can't believe her eyes and becomes super excited to learn even more about Leto's futuristic society. She explains that their historical records state that Earth was an ice planet, but the ice gradually melted to cover the planet with a vast ocean. Now, humans on Earth live on connected ships called fleets, like the Gargantia. They search for ancient ships and resources at the ocean's bottom to survive and follow the galaxy's currents, stretches of the ocean illuminated by marine insects that store electricity to power their ships. The beauty impresses Leto, but he becomes stressed because Chamber still struggles to obtain their coordinates. The next day, Amy tries to convince her superiors to form an alliance with Leto, but she fails. The commander authorizes an excavation of the underwater area, where they found the machine-caliber mecha to search for suspicious objects. However, this is interrupted by a surprise pirate attack. Bellows, the leader of the excavators, is sent to the front line to defend the fleet, but her team is overwhelmed by the enemy, who has aerial units called kites. She asks Leto to help them, and he agrees, intending to use it as a bargaining chip later. He boards the machine caliber and launches a swift attack. The machine instantly shoots down all the pirate ships, leaving everyone paralyzed in horror at the massive wreckage. Leto returns to the fleet to report that he destroyed all the enemy pirates. He expects everyone to applaud, but instead, Amy seems upset and runs away while Chamber and Leto wonder what they could have done wrong. The older, uglier superiors are concerned that Leto's drastic actions might provoke a war with the pirates. The commander silences them, deciding to wait and see the pirates' reaction before acting. After the meeting, Bellows consoles Amy, who is upset by Leto's actions, and takes her to speak with him. Amy apologizes for running away earlier, and Bellows offers her a chicken carcass as a gesture of peace. Leto is so disturbed that he even considers starting a vendetta against them. However, he decides to sit with them to discuss the pirate issue. He sees no problem with having vaporized the pirates, as they were enemies of Gargantia. But Bellows explains that killing is the greatest taboo on Earth. They only kill enough fish and birds to stay alive. Leto asks why they are armed if this is true. She responds that it's only for self-defense. Bellows' team is engaged in an intense warrior war against the pirates, with neither side ending up killing the other unless absolutely necessary as a last resort. However, now that blood has been spilled, the pirates will certainly retaliate. She asks Leto to lend his power to help keep the pirates at bay, handing him a dubious-looking communicator so he can contact her. After Bellows leaves, Amy expresses her gratitude to him for protecting the fleet and tries to get closer to him by inviting him to stay here forever. Feeling utterly repulsed by the idea, Leto mentions that he will consider the possibility of maintaining peace. The next day, a massive fleet bearing a lobster emblem sails toward Gargantia, signaling only one thing. Lady Ract, the feared pirate leader, is spearheading the attack, and her fleet is twice the size of Gargantia's. The leaders contemplate negotiating, but Commander Fairlock knows that talking is futile when they seek revenge. A tense silence fills the room until Bell suggests they speak with Leto and activates the communicator. Ridget speaks to him on behalf of the commander, asking why he is willing to help them if he can destroy their fleet alone. Leto responds that he will defeat the pirates in exchange for negotiation and the right to stay with them until he figures out his next steps. Hearing this, the commander agrees to his terms, and they immediately begin preparing for the impending attack before the pirates reach them. As night falls, they plan for Leto and his machine caliber to act as a distraction, diverting the pirates' attention from Gargantia's assault. Once darkness envelops the sea, Leto stealthily approaches the pirate fleet and unleashes a blinding light from his machine caliber. All the pirate ships fire at the mecha, which easily dodges their attacks. While they are distracted, Gargantia's ships begin firing at the enemy. But the diversion is short-lived, and the pirates refocus on the fleet. Within a minute of battle, 15 of Gargantia's ships are out of commission, forcing Leto to rejoin the fight. With Chambers' assistance, he disables several weapons and engines without causing casualties. Meanwhile, Gargantia's main ship is struck by a surprise attack from the pirates, who skillfully launch mechas from a submerged vessel. The troops are busy containing the enemy mechas when suddenly, a massive lobster-shaped mecha piloted by Lady Ract is spotted surfing toward the fleet. An attack ship attempts to ram her, but she evades the threat by leaping over it. She approaches, rams the hull of the main ship, and uses her mechanical body to climb the floating fortress. The commander orders everyone else to evacuate, as she is only after him. However, Leto attacks her from behind before she can reach him. He expects her to push him aside, but instead, she holds him in place, preventing him from moving. Soon, her two henchmen arrive in small boats and attach themselves to Leto and Lady Ract to tow them back to the pirate base. However, Leto uses superior aerial technology to lift them into the air and demands their immediate surrender. When they refuse, he spins them in the air like a Ferris wheel from hell, repeatedly urging them to surrender. Lady Ract knows she is defeated, but prefers death over surrender. The pirates retreat in fear immediately after seeing their leader defeated, and Gargantia's civilians celebrate the victory. This time, Leto is greeted by an enthusiastic crowd, and Amy presents him with a handful of fresh fish. He removes his helmet and speaks his first word in their language, "Thank you." As the celebrations die down, Ridget discusses Leto's living situation with him. He is given a low-quality boat as his new home, but accepts it because it is close to Chamber. Shortly after, she hands him a receipt for a student loan, stating that he needs to work for Gargantia until he can pay off the damages caused to the hangar. Over time, Leto slowly begins to learn more of the language and helps the Gargantia crew with daily tasks. However, his contributions end up causing more problems than helping, so the workers decide to release him after he hands over control of the machine caliber to them. Amy comes to talk to him as he sits moodily in a shaded corner. She watches him pierce a white object with his laser weapon and asks what he is doing. He replies that he doesn't know, but has a habit of doing this with all his Rita claws. He gives one to her, and Amy gratefully accepts it, taking him for a walk. As they stroll through the crowded markets, Amy mentions that her younger brother Beville will love the Rita claw. The word brother is strange to Leto, and he asks Chamber what it means. Amy soon realizes that he has no idea what a family is, and asks if he has anyone waiting for him in Avalon. He explains with a completely serious face that he doesn't, and prefers it that way because families seem inefficient and unnecessary. It's a good thing Amy's type is a walking red flag. She first takes him to Dr. Orden, the most knowledgeable person in the fleet, to get his questions answered. However, the doctor turns out to be quite useless, as his library doesn't contain the information Leto needs to discover interstellar travel. Leto then asks a question that has been bothering him for a long time. Why does the fleet have such a disorganized and inefficient structure where there is no clear chain of command and the weak are protected? Dr. Orden laughs at this question and suggests he ask Beville about it. It will be up to Leto to decide if Beville's answer will be useful or not. After their visit to the doctor, Amy takes him to her home to meet Beville, who is sitting on his bed overlooking the window. Leto learns that he is bedridden due to a chronic chest illness, but is very interested in learning about space. He becomes enthusiastic when he hears Chambers speak through his transmitter and begins asking about life in space. Leto explains that the main task of everyone in the Galactic Alliance is to defeat the Redas, who threaten humanity's existence. Beville asks if they don't get tired, and Leto responds that those who get tired die. Living in space no longer seems so appealing to Beville, so he asks Leto how he is adapting to Gargantia. Leto also has frustrations with Gargantia, and asks the same question he asked Dr. Orden to Beville. Beville points out that Gargantia is not an organization but a society of people who have chosen to help each other and live in harmony. This seems absurd to Leto, who sees no purpose in such a life. He says that people like Beville, unable to fight, are immediately eliminated from the Alliance. Beville asks what the Galactic Alliance will do when they defeat the Redas. Leto responds that they will stand by until they receive their next orders, and emphasizes that standing by is basically the same as living, and that's what the people of Gargantia are doing. A few days later, an unexpected rain begins. Everyone rushes to the streets and stretches out sailcloths to collect the water in large barrels. Bellows explains that rain is their only source of fresh water, and it is a community tradition to gather and collect this precious, though rare, resource. Leto and Chamber also help, and seeing everyone working together and happy seems to touch something inside him. After the rain stops, Amy takes Leto to her home to dry off. This time, Beville joins them as a third wheel. He tells Leto that even though he is sick forever, he doesn't feel unnecessary because his sister Amy needs him as much as he needs her. Leto is a bit confused, realizing that there is no one who depends on him, but still believes that the Alliance only considers those who can fight as necessary. That's when Beville takes the Rita claw that Amy gave him and asks Leto about it. He made a flute out of the claw since it would be useless in battle. He then plays a small melody on the flute, which immediately transports Leto to a cold and inhospitable place where the only warmth is a smiling boy who looks like him. He snaps out of the trance when Beville stops playing but is shocked to see tears streaming down his face. He doesn't understand what happened and quickly wipes his face, while Beville apologizes for making him remember something unpleasant and returns the flute to him. In the following days, Leto aimlessly makes more flutes while pondering his conversations with Beville. With nothing else to do, he gradually becomes frustrated with all his free time and asks Amy to help him find a job he can do. They practically search for job openings throughout the fleet, but everything ends up being a failure. This unsuccessful search is interrupted by a sudden halt of the fleet, leading Leto to think they are in crisis. But Pinion tells him to cheer up because it's his first command and invites him to his secret party. They join Amy and Beville, who is suddenly no longer sick, to celebrate. Beville explains that a calm occurs when the ship's engines are turned off due to the drop in winds, and the day is used for ship maintenance. For most people, it is a much-needed break from their daily jobs. The party starts off poorly because there is a delay in the return of electricity, rendering the electric grill useless for preparing the delicious meat. Leto tries to help by using his machine caliber to grill the steak with a pulse of heat, but he ends up being too strong and only manages to incinerate the food. So instead, Pinion sends him to an obscure grandma's house to fetch something important. He navigates the scariest parts of the city while searching for the grandma's address, which takes half the day. When he arrives, the grandma reads Pinion's note and silently hands him a box that he is too scared to open. When he finally returns to the party, a lively crowd has already gathered, using the sun-warmed black parts of the machine caliber to cook steaks under the hot afternoon sun. Pinion opens the box to reveal a bottle containing Gargantia's finest sauce, elevating the party to a whole new level and making it a huge success. By the end of the day, everyone thanks Leto for his noble service in acquiring Granny's legendary sauce, making him feel good about being useful to others. The next day, Leto stares blankly at the money he earned as a salary for the loading work that the machine caliber does daily. Since there is no currency in space, he really doesn't know how to use it. Amy manages to get him a job as a fisherman due to the increase in fish catches that week. His boss explains that from time to time, the galaxy's currents converge, forming a galactic loop where there is always a treasure trove of fish. At first, Leto seems to have a natural talent for controlling the fishing mecha's movements, but he soon fumbles with the net when diving into the water as he doesn't know how to make it swim and isn't used to not having a valuable weapon. He can't rely on a tool like Chamber to guide him. In the end, he gives up and lets Chamber use the machine caliber. He makes another flute as a coping mechanism when Pinion invites him for a special dinner. He is disappointed to hear that Leto only wants a simple bread with sea mustard and asks for one of the special dishes. He asks Leto about his life in Gargantia, and Leto says it's decent but feels a distance from the locals. Pinion explains that this is expected since people here don't understand him. Leto seems not to comprehend, so he asks him if there is anything he wants to do. Leto promptly responds that he wants to continue serving the Alliance, but when asked if there's something he'd like to do here, he doesn't answer. Pinion points out that this is exactly the problem, since people can't trust someone who doesn't know what they want. He proposes Leto work as a scavenger, but Leto responds that he already has a salary he doesn't know how to spend. Pinion suggests he use that money to have fun, eat well like now, and buy things that make him happy while deciding what he wants to do. At the same time, Bellows appears and convinces him to learn to work with her, initiating a bidding war between her and Pinion to recruit him. During the discussion, Chamber sends an emergency assistance request to Leto, who arrives at the scene and discovers that Chamber has completely overdone his fish-catching job, turning them into bullets. To compensate for the damage, this time Leto pilots the machine caliber and, with the help of some local mechas, executes the largest fishing operation in Gargantia. Leto presents Amy with his newly earned fat paycheck and gives Beville some sweets and a toy crab. Dr. Orden, present when he visits their home, comments that the money he earned shows that he supported someone, leading Leto to realize the true value of a job and sparking his interest in becoming a scavenger. He accepts Bellows' proposal, and on his first day of training, she takes him to explore the wreckage of an ancient ship. Everything seems to go well until he notices some strange movements inside the ship. He immediately shields Bellows when a squid-like creature bursts from the wreck. Chamber confirms it is a ruse, prompting Leto to switch to combat mode and pursue the alien. Bellows shouts for him not to touch the creature, calling it a whale squid. However, Leto ignores her and attempts to fire a cannon but misses. The beast pushes the machine caliber, creating a current that drives Bellows' mecha to the ocean floor. The leather-skinned creature wraps its tentacles around the mecha's limbs, forcing him to eject. Leto charges at the monster with laser beams and grabs it from behind to squeeze it until it dies. It doesn't take long for the duo to return to the fleet, and a crowd gathers around Leto's machine caliber. Everyone watches in awe and disgust at the bloody remains of the whale squid in his mecha, and the news quickly spreads to the superiors, who begin to condemn Leto because whale squids are sacred creatures to Gargantia, and he just killed one in cold blood. Bridget tries to calm them, but fears that the civilians will turn against him, and that the death will bring a curse. Pinion seizes the chance to convince his men to explore a whale squid's territory, saying he heard their nests are full of treasures. However, the men are too scared of the terrifying beasts, and refuse to go unless Pinion gets Leto and his rescue team to face them first. The machine caliber protects them during the operation. Meanwhile, Leto doesn't care about the scandal he caused and uses some of the blood to conduct a DNA analysis of the creature and confirm that the Redas have infiltrated Earth. He also decides to search for information about their distribution to discover the extent of the deep mess that exists there. Soon, he and Bellows are summoned by Ridget, who yells at Bellows for not controlling the situation when she was in charge of Leto. She accepts responsibility for the incident and apologizes for not telling him about the whale squids earlier. Leto realizes that the Redas are numerous on Earth and commits to annihilating them all, which further angers Ridget. She tells him that killing whale squids is a sin in Gargantia, but he insists on maintaining his principle that the Redas are purely evil creatures that threaten humanity. One of the superiors, named Flange, interrupts the discussion and tells Ridget that the commander is waiting to hear the details of the incident. When everyone leaves the room, Pinion grabs Flange and whispers something to him. However, Bellows and Ridget notice this suspicious interaction. After the meeting, Amy takes Leto to her home, where he asks Beville to tell him everything he knows about whale squids. Beville and Amy try to dissuade him from this genocidal idea, saying that whale squids only become aggressive if someone tries to attack them. Otherwise, they are gentle creatures. Leto angrily explains that they only ignore the people of Gargantia because their civilization is too primitive, but when the time is right, the Redas will attack, and they will have no way to fight back, as they have no plan prepared. Beville and Amy still can't accept his words, so he tells them he only lives to kill the Redas and leaves. Meanwhile, Bellows confronts Pinion and tells him not to execute his stupid plan to use Leto to invade a whale squid nest and put Gargantia's safety at risk. She calls him out for his clearly childish motives of inflating his ego by being the first to do something bold. This irritates him, but he calms down and tells her that his true motives are to avenge his brother. She sympathizes with him, but still says his goal is an impossible dream. Meanwhile, Leto shares his frustrations with Chamber and becomes impatient with the inability to contact the Galactic Alliance. Chamber confirms that the DNA perfectly matches that of the Redas, further increasing his anguish. Chamber points out that the people of Gargantia don't accept Leto's beliefs because their philosophy is fundamentally different from the Alliance's philosophy. When Leto asks what the plan is, Chamber responds that the words to describe it don't exist in the Alliance's language, but on Earth, they are coexistence and mutual prosperity. Later that night, a massive school of whale squids is seen rapidly approaching the fleet, and Leto is notified by Chamber shortly after. He immediately rushes toward his machine caliber, but Amy arrives in time and tells him to stop. The fleet's control room is in chaos after detecting such a large school heading straight for their ships. The ship is being constructed in shallow waters, and an emergency siren blares in Gargantia's hold to alert the civilians. Commander Fairlock enters the control room and orders the siren to be turned off. Once the fleet is silent, the commander addresses everyone present and asks them to remain calm. He assures them that he has a plan to ensure Gargantia does not suffer any damage. Additionally, he requests that all civilians make as little noise as possible and orders Ridget to ensure that the engines and power supply of all ships are turned off so that there is no light or noise coming from the fleet. As the power is cut, Amy makes an effort to hold Leto back. He asks her to let him fight alone and promises to leave Gargantia after fulfilling his duty. Bridget and her men arrive with weapons pointed at him, granting him the authority to act as he wishes if the whale squids attack the fleet. But until then, he must follow her orders. At that moment, the school intercepts the fleet, and hundreds of whale squids swim past the ships. Everyone holds their breath in silence as the terrifying shadows approach the fleet, but the school passes without incident. Amy sighs in relief and touches Leto's shoulder, but he pulls away, saying he can't stay if he wants to fulfill his duty as a soldier. The next day, Pinion approaches the commander with a proposal to search for a whale squid nest with Leto's help, and presents a list of ship names that agreed to join him on his expedition. Flange supports the idea, stating that all his ships will also participate in the mission, as he wants to benefit from the vast treasures left at the ocean's depths by the advanced civilization that once inhabited Earth. This is a significant blow to the commander, as Flange owns a large portion of the ship, and his departure would mean a substantial weakening of Gargantia's defense line. He is about to reject the proposal, but stops mid-sentence due to a sudden heart attack. Meanwhile, Chamber informs Leto that he has finally found the Alliance's coordinates, but rescue is impossible because the time it would take for the Alliance to receive any of his messages is over several years. At that moment, Leto realizes he will never return to the Galactic Alliance. In Dr. Orden's clinic, Commander Fairlock regains consciousness just long enough to hand over a mysterious key and a security key, entrusting his title of commander to Ridget, who tearfully holds his hand as he passes away. The late commander's decision is met with much disapproval from the older, more traditional superiors who cannot bear the thought of being led by a young woman. As a result, they oppose her request to discuss Flange's proposal to separate from the fleet during the funeral, and she cannot prevent Flange's departure. Only one of the ships, called Cronus, returns to tell her to keep her head high. The lengthy process of disconnecting the ships begins, and civilians are forced to choose between staying in Gargantia or joining Flange's ship. Pinion approaches Leto and makes a deal where Leto can kill all the whale squids living in one of their nests, and Pinion will loot the treasures found there. Everyone gathers to perform the final rites for Commander Fairlock, paying their respects by throwing sand over his body. During the ceremony, Flong comments to Cronus that he believes he should have been the next commander. However, Cronus mentions that he thinks the best use of the little time he has left is to guide the next generation. Flong wishes him luck, and they bid farewell to Fairlock for the last time. Bridget mourns alone for the man who raised her after her father's death, who was the commander before Fairlock. Pinion seeks her out with one last request to sign his proposal, but he maintains his decision to leave despite her refusal, saying she shouldn't stop others from leaving the fleet if she doesn't believe she can protect it. As the ships begin to depart that night, Amy watches sadly as Leto prepares to leave from a distance. One of her friends advises her to join him, as it's clear she doesn't want to let him go, but she ultimately decides to stay for Beville. Bellows enters Ridget's office and finds her stressed alone in the dimly lit room. When he suggests a break, Ridget snaps, saying she can't appear weak. Bellows shares that she went through something similar when inheriting her father's company, feeling the need to prove her worth by doing everything alone. After much effort, she made a great catch, but her mecha got stuck underwater and she nearly died. Later, Pinion mocked her, saying her actions were stupid because they were the same as not trusting her companions. She assures Bridget that she was trained to be a commander for a long time under Fairlock's guidance and should continue to uphold her convictions as always. Bridget sees some lights come to life on the fleet map and looks out the window to see some people boarding the fleet, showing that some still trust her to keep them safe. Amy returns home, and Beville wastes no time rubbing salt in her wounds, reminding her that Leto left. Amy ends up breaking down, crying as she expresses that he's a fool for always risking his life and that she wishes he would live for himself. Seeing his sister cry motivates Beville to act and go talk to Leto. He asks Leto if he truly wishes to leave the fleet, and Leto responds that he's doing it for humanity and mainly for Amy's sake. Beville replies that Amy never asked him to do this. Leto gives him a flute, saying it was made by a child he now thinks is his younger brother. He repeats that children like Beville, who can't fight, die in the Galactic Alliance, but he doesn't want the same thing to happen on Earth and make Amy experience losing her brother, so he will personally destroy all the Radassa on Earth before they have a chance to attack. Bridget arrives just before Fairlock's body is delivered to the deep ocean. She apologizes to everyone for her delay, and with a solemn gesture, pours sand over him before bidding farewell along with the people of Gargantia. She watches his body sink in respectful silence, then turns to address everyone present. She formally introduces herself as their new commander and declares with determination her intention to continue Fairlock's wish to protect Gargantia. She admits her powerlessness in preventing so many from leaving the fleet that should be their home and asks for the support of the remaining people. An awkward silence envelops the scene, and Bellows is about to be the first to express her support when she is interrupted by the head of the fishermen, who says that all the veterans are on her side. Everyone else agrees and cheers for Bridget. The next morning, Leto visits Amy and Beville at their home and says goodbye. Beville pleads with him to return alive to Gargantia, as he is keeping the flutes for him. Leto wishes them luck and departs with the last ship. Bridget finally approves Pinion's proposal, her first official decision as commander. The ships arrive at the Sea of Fog, a stretch of ocean known as the largest whale squid nest from which no one has ever returned alive. Thank you for joining us on this thrilling journey through Gargantia on the Verdurous Planet. If you enjoyed this adventure and want to explore more captivating stories, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell for updates on our latest content. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so let us know what other anime or stories you'd like us to dive into next. Your support helps us bring more exciting tales to life. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.